you recently delivered a community-wide address to a well-attended event on campus. What were a few of the important messages coming out of that you would like the rest of the community to hear?
One was the continued future growth, both academic programs and in serving the region that we have goals for. Two was a new program, engineering, which we will start in the fall with industry experts who have helped us say what that niche would be for us in engineering, and with a federal grant that will help us give the launch to that program of $5 million. And the third message was my attempt to help debunk some of the myths about public higher education in this country, because I know that they don't serve us well in the work we do that I think is so important to this region and the state.
You're debunking myths about stereotypes about students, right?
That was one of them.
Students are like, 18, 21-year-olds and get finished in 3 or 4 years, and you were painting a very different kind of a picture of the students.
Well, and Allison, that certainly is the traditional sort of picture of a 18 to 22-year-old white student financially supported by their family and often living on campus. 80% of our students do not look like that historic stereotype. And in fact, the majority of students in public universities don't look like that. The majority of our students, 55%, are first generation in college students. About the same proportion are from underrepresented minorities and other underrepresented populations, such as veterans, American Indians, former foster youth. Many of our students care for family members and or work full or part-time. And so when you look at that 80% of our students, you can begin to understand, and it begins to explain some of the other myths that are out there about what the average college student looks like. Also, 1/3 of our college students don't fit that 18 to 22-year-old age profile as well.
They're older. And the thing about your campus is it's so diverse. And I wanted to ask you about this because last year when you gave your speech, there were actually students outside protesting because the campus had just let go its head of diversity. Now, you've recently hired somebody new, and I haven't actually seen very much about him. So tell us who he is and why you decided to pick him.
He's on the campus now for a month, so that new, Dr. Jojo McManus, who has had decades of both academic teaching and leadership in diversity issues nationwide. He comes from both a background in his family of a multicultural, multiracial family, so he comes with that background, and he comes with a perspective that also has been part of looking at and being a consultant to public higher education and private institutions nationwide about how to effectively engage a diverse student population and make them successful through to graduation.
And he is white himself, and I wondered if you had any people who were questioning that on your very diverse campus.
I have been actually surprised at the receptivity. We obviously move all of our candidates through a pretty broad search process where students, faculty, staff, administrators, community people can interact and provide feedback. The feedback was with a lot of consensus from all groups about his credentials, about his passion, about the feeling of his ability to continue to move us strategically forward, and with increased best practices in serving students, and quite frankly, in recruiting a more diverse faculty and staff.
Mm-hmm. I know college affordability is a big issue all across the country. How does that work with your diverse student body? Do they consider CSU a good value? And what do you say to parents who are struggling to get their kids through college?
Well, a good question. And one of the myths, part of the answer is one of the myths I was also trying to debunk, and that is the incredible high student loan indebtedness. Mm-hmm. So one, I would say to you that I think the CSU, the system, and Cal State San Marcos in particular, is an extremely good, high value for an education. Is it affordable for all students? 60% of our students literally pay no tuition. Now, there are books and fees, but literally pay no tuition because they are eligible for Pell Grants, for the State University Grant, for Cal Grants, et cetera. And I'm saying grants, not loans. 50% of our students graduate with zero loan indebtedness. Now, I want to be clear that that is partly because many of them are working full and part-time jobs, but they don't have a lot of student indebtedness. And of the students who have loans, our average student loan is $13,000 compared to the national average of $35,000. So a high value. On the other hand, what we also do is increasingly, certainly in our capital campaign, want to assure that we're raising more money for scholarships because we know there's still a gap. There are students, we would like to reduce that loan indebtedness down. We would like to provide opportunities for our students to have paid internships or have more scholarship funds so they didn't have to work half-time jobs or more to get through school. Is public higher education moving in a direction where costs are going up? Yes. Do I see a parallel in terms of state funding of public higher education in the state and nationally? Absolutely. That as we get less and less funding from the state of California, we are in a terrible value bind of how to serve the kind of students, particularly that come to Cal State San Marcos, first-generation students, students who really do have to work and have families to support, and how to provide them a quality education, access to classes, and pay the bills of what a quality education is. Do I say that to parents? Yes. Do I say we work hard to try to mitigate both the cost by scholarships and other and programs with community partners and loan forgiveness? Are the costs continuing to go up? Our board is going to consider a tuition increase at its March meeting.
In fair disclosure to the audience, by the way, I am an adjunct teacher at Cal State San Marcos, so in a sense, Dr. Haynes is, I guess, one of my bosses here. But let me ask about the tuition increase. I know that it has caused some conversation among students at Cal State San Marcos. I know there have been protests at Cal State Fullerton and some of the other campuses. Do you see, well, first, can you tell us exactly what the system has in mind to do with that money? And to what extent is the money directed at trying to satisfy the demand for courses in, say, majors that have so many waitlisted classes in it? Because that's the other thing that I hear discussed is, I can't get what I need.
That's right. So starting with the big picture for a minute, our board has asked the governor and the legislature to fund the CSU at close to $320 million more. The governor has said he will give us $157 million, so less than half of what the system believes we need to continue to serve the current students we have, not increase students.
Interject a small parenthetical question, and that, what'd you get last year?
A 1% increase.
So it was if they're giving you 156 this year.
157 million this year. Last year we got about 138 million as a system.
That's what it.
So there's that piece. When we look at where do we need the money? So the money right now that we need would go to the instructional access to courses, right? More course sections and more student support services. It would go to what our system is pushing, and we're beginning about what we call a graduation initiative, moving students through in a more timely manner, so that with the more you can get course sections out, the more you can support students through academic learning centers, tutors, and student counseling, the quicker they can move to graduation. So it would go to that. It would go to basic part of not the tuition, but part of what we're asking the state is they can hold us to flat funding, but utilities and benefits are not in our control, and they don't stay flat. And we don't know what our unions will negotiate for compensation increases.
What is the factor of the enrollment growth how does that fit with this budget request. I know, or I've read that we have about 15,000 students this year.
Right.
If I go back in time, not too long ago, it was 7,000 or 8,000.
That's right.
Does the budget correspond to an FTE load?
The general fund appropriations gives us how many full-time equivalent students they will pay for.
I see.
Cal State San Marcos has made calculated, financially reasoned decisions every year for the last 6 years to admit more students than the state is paying for. Because we are the only public comprehensive, really access institution in all of San Diego County, South, West Riverside, and Southern Orange. So we also feel this sort of moral obligation, and we will next year again admit maybe up to 1,000 students more than the state will pay us to support. Now, we will get the tuition dollars, but not the general fund dollars.
How many are you turning down?
Oh, well, where it starts, we have 22,000 applications for first-time freshmen for next year, for a class of about 2,500. Now, that's the applications. Obviously, the
Right.
funnel is people apply. Some of them apply, many of them, if they're smart, apply multiple places, right? But we will deny it. Right now, we're denying admission to everyone who is not within our primary service area. We are going to open up the doors a little bit to transfer students south of the 56 because they are finding nowhere to go. And transfer students, even more than many of our first-time freshmen, are really place-bound. So redirecting a transfer student from Mira Mesa to Channel Islands is unlikely going to be a path that will be, possible for them.
Is there a significant number of international students that are still able to come in despite this kind of restriction or cap?
Yes, the state appropriation and our own system FTES allocation does not include out-of-state or international. So out-of-state international, we can manage as we see fit.
There was a controversy in the news with the UC system over the idea of financing its operations by attracting ever more international students who pay much higher dollars to come. Is that a strategy that has been part of anything in the CSU system?
Or some of the older campuses have certainly, I think the strategy has been that international students both enrich our own campuses and provide our own native students with experiences. Obviously, they do bring, as out-of-state students bring, same amount, they bring roughly double the amount of tuition to the table. The piece I think that people get concerned about is if that ratio stays at, let's say, under 10% of your entire student population, then it's a reasonable mix. When you start increasing it beyond that, then the worry is, are you denying access to qualified California students? So our population now, out of state and international, is under 3%. And quite frankly, each one of those out of state students or international students funds 84 seats.
Really? So it's tempting.
Right? In our classes. So it's positive if you can keep the mix as something that you think enriches the campus and doesn't deny access to regional students.
Especially since 80% of your students do stay in the region after
yes.
they've graduated, which
Yes.
is a wonderful thing. I wanted to ask you about something unfortunate that happened a couple of months ago where a student was raped right in broad daylight on campus, 11 o'clock in the morning. And I know that the campus has been dealing with this problem and you've adopted various strategies to try and cut it down. But I mean, how safe is the campus and what more can you do to prevent this kind of thing from happening?
Well, so two approaches at least came out of that unfortunate incident. One is to continue to do more aggressive education of our students about how to keep themselves in safe places. And I know this was on campus, so I want to continue that. And, how to assure that how they're meeting people, because this was an online relationship where the first face-to-face meeting occurred on our campus and resulted in this unfortunate incident. So one is to push out even more the aggressive education to our students. how to keep themselves safe, who on campus, is there to be the first responder and the first call. And then in terms of the safety, we have enlarged our police force and certainly needed to over the growth that Kent, noted earlier. We have tried to assure that there are security cameras, that we are patrolling. People know if it's in the evening that they can call, our dispatcher and have people walk them to cars. Extra lights we've added to along the campus. I think for any college campus, this is one of those, can you protect everybody all the time? And obviously not in broad daylight on the campus.
Can I ask a delicate question on this topic? Some of the national commentators or expertise talk about there being a rape crisis or epidemic on American college campuses and cite a 1 in 4, 1 in 5 number of a woman being a victim of sexual violence during her college career. Is that a realistic number for a campus like Cal State San Marcos? Is it really that bad?
No. Two things. It isn't that bad, and I think, and certainly some of the data points being used there are reports, and then there's an investigation and a decision at the end. So there are reports. The reports on campuses have increased over the last 2 years, and I think that's a good thing, that people actually know that this is something that they should and could report, that they will, get counseling, that there will be an investigation as called for. So the reports have increased, not necessarily the fact that it's increased sexual assault, and some of those investigations do not lead to a conclusion of sexual violence.
Right.
Would it be acceptable if those were the numbers? Absolutely not. And we started years ago in most college campuses. I mean, there is a lot of domestic violence protection education that our students, certainly our new students coming in, get, that we repeatedly push out, and also, an increasing conversations about what do we believe on a campus is a code of joint responsibility. To also report, not just be the victim, but report other potential signs of abusive behavior.
Right. Having gone back and looked at Clery reports for the campus, and now being on the campus regularly, I kind of walk around and go, this does not feel like a dangerous place. It feels like a pretty safe, wholesome campus to be part of.
Can I ask a question about something different, which, as a member of the media,
2 minutes left.
2 minutes, okay. As a member of the media, I feel like, one of the problems is that people, the whole phenomenon of fake news, and education is key to helping people understand what is fake news and what is not. And is there something that you're focusing on, to try to help to educate the general public more about how to consume news in an intelligent way?
Well, I think an excellent question, and in fact, yesterday in our academic senate, and today with a group of full professors, talking exactly about what faculty both can do within a class and in a classroom, and how we can have more of those conversations in class that help our students, and maybe our employees as well, not just our students, help more broadly about where do they need to be more discerning. Obviously, we hope we educate students all along the way to understand where are credible resources for fact-checking, where to look for concurrence of information that builds to a credible point of data or the rounding out of a concept. But I know that our faculty are having more of those conversations and looking more critically at their own curriculum and in-class or out-of-class activities for students to help educate that even more.